Hello and welcome back to the Eyes of Old Gaming channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today I have another older game in my What Is It and Is It Worth It game review series. In this video I will go through the various aspects of the game, trying my best to avoid spoilers for new players and give examples of similar games as well as my personal opinion as to whether I would recommend the game with a thumbs up or thumbs down and if I personally enjoyed it. I won't be giving a number rating to the game as many other channels do, as I find this to be a very arbitrary way of rating games, which like any other entertainment is completely subjective, and instead I prefer to give enough info for you to make a decision on your own if you would like to go forward with picking up this title for yourself. When heaven and hell go into battle, the only thing that can stand between them is war? Today we're looking at Darksiders, a game developed by Vigil Games and published by THQ, releasing originally back in 2010. This particular review will be looking at the Warmastered Edition though, which was developed by these guys and published by THQ Nordic, releasing in 2016. Regardless of which edition, this game certainly fits within the older releases category of my reviews, either being about a decade or half a decade depending on which way you look at it. So that being said, what exactly is Darksiders? And has it held up over the years, being worth it for a first time player to pick up today? We're going to look at the game together and find out if this one is right for you. What is Darksiders? Well, essentially it's a third person hack and slash adventure game. This is an old school classic style of game very typical of the era of previous gen consoles such as PS2 and 3, as well as Xbox and 360. The game will put you in control of War, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, as you are tasked with traveling around the land battling both the warriors of heaven and hell who are currently locked in battle of the end times. Why are heaven and hell battling? Well, the main reason is the basic premise of the main campaign, which you will unlock the answers to throughout. However, in the very beginning, it is revealed that the protagonist, War, is a representative of a neutral party called the Charred Council. This neutral party seeks to be a mediator between the three kingdoms of heaven, hell, and humanity. At a specific time, it is agreed that the uneasy truce of these kingdoms will be broken and they will go to war, but until then, it is up to the council to enforce the truce. Why do they bother with the truce, and who created or gave the Charred Council the power to be arbiters? Well, in the game, the explanation seems to be a little bit shaky, though apparently they were created specifically for the task, and the truce being a result of allowing the third kingdom of humanity a chance to prepare for the end war between all the kingdoms. Even after playing through the entire game, I understand that there is a truce, and on the surface why they have made it. However, the deeper reason of why this accommodation was afforded to humans still escapes me. We will come back to this at the end in my subjective take on the game though. In terms of mechanics, it's a third-person hack and slash. Nothing too fancy here, just hacking and slashing, with the typical addition of special weapons and tools, which will be used to solve puzzles along the way. Aside from combat with regular enemies, which you'll encounter along your quest, you'll be required to engage in boss battles and puzzle solving. Boss battles can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. However, in the very typical style of these types of games, once you learn the weakness of the boss or the specific combination of moves required to beat them, they become rather easy to defeat. I felt that they were more akin to a Castlevania Lords of Shadow level of difficulty rather than Lords of the Fallen, or others that have a much more punishing boss battle difficulty level. It feels very much within the style of a classic adventure game challenge. Puzzles can be sometimes very simple, but in the later stages will have a rather decent level of complexity. Though I didn't find any of the puzzles to be overly challenging or requiring a long time to figure out how to complete them, in the late stages of the game you can be tasked with puzzles which require multiple steps in order to pass through. Overall, I would say that I found the puzzles to be quite enjoyable, though fairly easy to complete. Graphics are typical in style for this type of game as well. Again, I played through on Warmastered, or essentially the remastered version, and had not played the game when it originally released, so I don't have any way to gauge the improvements other than some video I've seen of the original release. From what I have seen, it does look like they've sharpened up the quality and made the game run more smoothly, though after watching some side-by-side comparisons, I personally didn't feel that if you own the original, that the remaster was worth buying the game a second time to play through. This of course is my opinion, and if you want a more updated experience, the remaster is obviously the prettier and better optimized option to go with. Aside from that, when we look at the graphics, we have the chunky characters and NPCs in this one. Think Lords of the Fallen or Gears of War style, with the protagonist having that extremely wide and thick aesthetic similar to those games. And whether you like this will be up to your personal preference. Environments, though prettied up for the remaster, are definitely showing their age and will be less detailed than modern games. Most of the game will be taking place within post-apocalyptic ruins, destroyed subway tunnels, and the occasional wilderness or natural environment setting. Really, I didn't find a ton of variety in this department, however the environments do fit the overall setting of the game. There is some skill and attribute leveling with a simple purchase system built into the game. You'll collect a form of currency as you travel through to be traded for abilities, upgrades, and item boosts to be used in your quest. Aside from that, I would say there isn't too much in the way of other features, as this is more of a purist old school style adventure game and lacks many of the newer game bells and whistles. Don't take this as a critique, as I find many newer games try too hard to incorporate everything and instead end up being a mediocre jack of all trades rather than specializing in being the best in their particular style. Sound is the classic game style, very generic of the time period, with nothing really stand out. The soundtrack is also rather generic, with nothing that stood out to me, and really it was rather forgettable. Other sound effects are very typical and nothing too exciting. The best aspect of the sound was the voice acting, with one of my personal favorites being the voice work of Mark Hamill. The writing is rather simple, but when it is expressed, the delivery is done quite well.
Welcome back, horseman.
Remember that, or I will really get under your skin.
Which games would I compare this to? While you have some God of War or Dante's Inferno elements with the hack and slash style and puzzle solving, it's firmly in the classic adventure style of these games as well, and the themes have a bit of crossover with Dante's Inferno. You can also compare with Castlevania for similar reasons. Really, any of the classic adventure games are going to feel quite similar to this one. So now that we've looked at some of the features of the game, we reach the point of my review where I give a more subjective look at my personal experience with it. Please keep in mind that the following is just my opinion of the game, and if the features and genre seem interesting to you, you should definitely check it out for yourself, as not all games are for all gamers. The game that you hate might be the next gamer's all-time favorite, which is one of the things that I love about gaming. There's always something for someone out there. So did I enjoy this game, and would I recommend it?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, sure. It wasn't bad, but honestly I found it to be extremely generic. I think this one will appeal more to people who played it in the past and are looking for some nostalgia. I didn't really find it to be a standout in any area in particular, to be honest. It does everything well, but nothing done to a high level that really drew me in or hooked me. Aside from those with nostalgia, if you're looking for that classic adventure game, this one is a great choice to scratch that itch. It felt so incredibly generic of this style that I'm sure if you're a huge fan of any of the similar games, you'll be able to pick this one up and enjoy it as well. I know it is an older game and will lack some of the features of newer ones, but when compared to a game like Castlevania, which I picked up and played through recently as well, I find this one falls a little short. Again, not that this one is bad, just a little generic gameplay wise, and the story felt a little contrived without the deeper meanings for things being explained in a way that made sense and naturally fit the narrative that they were going for. Yes, there is a truce because humans need to catch up, but why are humans given the opportunity to catch up? What is the reason for any of this?
By order of the Council, a truce was forged between heaven and hell. The great pact was bound by 7 seals to be broken at the appointed time, when man's kingdom stood ready for the end war. A battle that would bring balance and determine the ultimate fate of the three kingdoms.
Twists all seem to be very obvious as I played through, but it feels very vanilla. The nice thing about all this is that it's a great game if you want to play in short amounts, as it's not too difficult to pick up and play after going long periods, as the controls are really quite simple. With the story being rather simple as well, it's not difficult to jump back in and pick up where you left off. So I hope you like this look at Darksiders. Have you played the game already? What were your thoughts on it? Do you agree or disagree with my assessment? Maybe you played this one some years ago and were thrilled to have a trip back down memory lane. In any case, I'd love to hear your own thoughts on it and whether or not you decided to go ahead with picking this one up. Remember to like the video if you found this entertaining or informative, and also consider subscribing to the channel. I upload a variety of gaming content and your support inspires me to keep going on. Otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time to watch today, and until next time, take care.